Chapter.
Would you like anything to help you?
I could say nothing.
We're
Am I
not
ready to go? I don't think so, not quite. I mean, I'm taking PCR
I never
tests
got to
for
that.
getting on the airline tomorrow.
They
I'm
canceled
flying
it.
United.
130 days,
Flying United.
160.
So,
No, that was the first part. The second part is going to be 180 all told.
this is just for international.
So we're putting things
Because
aside
when I show up at the airport to check in,
excited.
Tuesday morning, I have to have confirmation I had a PCR, a negative PCR test for the last 72 hours.
Because I'm so used to having it.
That's
Yeah.
their
I know what you mean.
So the vaccination card is.
Oh, that goes without saying.
Okay.
I need a I believe I need a I don't know what I need a vaccination for.
I was
I
sitting
fly
here so I
domestically.
could see.
But, and since I have
Somebody
it,
asked me for one.
it doesn't matter. And I haven't had the booster, so you need the today you need the booster to get into Israel. If you're traveling from the United States, I think if you're traveling from the European Union, they have all kinds of regulations. If you finished your COVID series less than 6 months after you're entering, less than 6 months before you're entering Israel, then you don't need the booster. But if your last shot was more than 6 months before, then you need the booster to get into Israel. So I've had it. That's not a problem. But it is, but there's a PCR test to get out of this country or to get onto United going internationally. There's a PCR test when you land in Israel. In order to enter the country, you have to get a negative PCR test. Or you have to, on entrance. In the airport, before you leave the airport, I don't know how they changed physically, but before you leave the airport, you take a PCR test. Then you go with your tour group. You are isolated in your hotel, basically until you get the negative results. Then you can travel, but you have to travel only with your group. And they want to try to limit your general movement in society.
How are you tonight?
Yeah.
And she had.
We're here.
Yeah.
Almost there.
And she's at the school, right? She's in
She
school.
went from a school called
Alexander Month.
Alexander.
Yeah, it's a good program.
Really good program for the non-voting.
But yeah, if you're going to stay there for a long time and you quarantine, in those days, that's what, I don't know what they require now for school. Short-term program.
2, 4, 6, only 6.
It was in my box.
She had to go to some
So
Vacation
that's
with
what
this.
we use. This computer, like 2 of these monitors have different displays for it, and this is a whole separate computer, and this is touch screen, and that isn't anything, so you're like, wait, what do I?
And then in Israel, I saw on the itinerary, the day before, a day and a half, I think it's usually 2 days before I fly out of Israel, they've arranged for me to take another PCR because I'm traveling internationally. And to get back into the United States, right now, this may change, but right now, to get back into the United States, you have to have a negative PCR test within 72 hours of coming back to the States. So that's on our itinerary. It's at 8 o'clock in the morning, the appointment, they'll probably bring in someone to do it because in the hotel, swallow my nose right now.
Pay nothing.
And put on.
So I
It's
fly
crazy enough
here.
I mean, when you're confronted with a crazy scenario, sometimes a crazy solution is only
On
on
the way back, it's a little different on the way back. It's,
How are you doing?
So,
Thanks. I love the
I probably, it was, I don't think it was designed and marketed as a key piece. I think it was, people spoke.
Yeah, I wore a Moroccan cap as a young adult, like a majority of my childhood.
I had this beautiful Moroccan, I forget what I get, they actually got a name for it, and it was purple, and it was gorgeous, and it disappeared one day. But I was in Turkey a couple of years ago, and had stocked up on some, which I wear to the high holy days, and they're pretty snazzy.
luckily there's a lot of emphasis. That's likely.
Doesn't quite go towards the outfit. Yep. Now, here's, okay. Now, what do you think about Yeah, I need a chair with arms. I don't mind sitting in the corner. I'm wondering if I could
My
change
face
this.
is not stopped. Not really straight, but like.
That's all right. Here, I'll help you out.
That does.
Yeah, absolutely. In a sense, this one will test this out, in a sense, this will be for
I used to
us
drive,
more,
you know, my
since
wife
I can hear
crazy
you.
with going to the movies and I move like three
Also,
times. You know, just like,
Right, and we usually alternate arm versus
Oh.
that's why they were sent there. It wasn't for any other particular reason. It was just kind of to
Yeah,
get the
and those are all.
extras if we had more.
They're not.
Now, what do we do? Do we count the people online
You know
towards
what?
a video?
That's gonna happen.
Some people have said yes, some say no. I would say
I assume
it
it's
is like
something that sits on,
really
not
sense of their presence with us. I would say 100% yes. People are watching this one direction. Others will say no. Others might say yes. I'm not so sure.
So,
For me, it's a matter of are people actually
like this.
like
So this is
together and aware of what they're
So this is
praying together.
There's also.
So if you had, for example, like had folks with us in the house and had a screen that showed them here with us, I would say yes.
But Facebook where they can be passive, you don't really know.
And we're not, we can't really tell how they're
No, you can.
Yeah, but well, obviously in real time as we leave the service, we're not checking that.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
also
yeah.
we can't see them or hear them.
Because I think the easy availability online increases the total attendance, but potentially decreases the in-person. Because I know it is so easy for me to be, yep, I don't feel like going out, but I'll turn it on online. And it's so easy to do it that way.
Very well maybe the case. We're going to see, especially because this is the first meeting where we are in person, multi-access, so we're really going to have to see how that shakes out.
Well, it doesn't
I'm sure we've got enough people who.
So it doesn't automatically. So you should.
Shabbat Shalom, good to see you.
Maybe you use some rent.
I haven't seen you in
So that's
person.
our package better than like the live.
Yeah. Shabbos, nice to see you.
Well, we mean like the like. Yeah.
How are you?
Shabbat Shalom. A lot of things are different.
That'd be great too, because you can give me feedback too about.
Yeah, that is more or less the same. Partly, partly is
Like feedback, so you can have sound balance.
So good to see you. How are you?
Yeah. So there's a plaque. That was the plaque. You know, like
Yeah.
the top, you know, for reasons
Why it's the first yard
I don't know
sale.
what it's called.
It's in there.
From the edge of the column.
It's so disrespectful.
We're just gonna point the thing back up, but
Not at all. Not at all.
I don't have the.
I'm in a light store.
Well, you really took off a bunch of weight. Yeah. this is the main sanctuary, and it's always been the same size. The doors didn't change.
Usually it was actually in
The doors have always been where they are.
people really, self-selected. But
When
they-
it came to it, people.
There is, if you need it, yes, but this is the same, the room didn't change size. We took out the pews and put chairs. The room did not change size.
They want to
And with carpet, yeah.
Right.
and they said, well, we
We have a whole video.
They did. Do what they want.
Video.
Some stream online, something that was like the case from.
Yeah.
What are you switching from?
Let me ask.
Spectrum,
Andrew.
and we're switching to YouTube TV.
David Shabbat Shalom. Sorry.
Spectrum phone.
That's all
I
right.
only put one phone in.
Which have on
Oh, you're talking about the cell phone.
Well, we have no line anymore.
I'm thinking the landline. When I put the landline in, I went to look up the fax on my computer.
Well, it's because they didn't put the right wiring in your house.
No. They only have one line. They piggyback it on the cable. And somehow, I'm not communications, but
This is too loose. Everything right?
anyway, I ran into a little bit of a problem. I worked it out, I figured out how to get around it. Shabbat Shalom, stranger. The new, the handshake.
Shabbat Shalom. It's wonderful to see you all here tonight. It's wonderful to welcome you also who are here online with us as we welcome the Shabbat, as we gather here in our community to be with one another, to try and gather some warmth. For those of you who aren't watching in Madison, Wisconsin, which is where we are, you would know, may not know that it was very cold this afternoon, sort of blustery, but now we're here in our warm sanctuary with our warm community. And so thankful to be so. For those of you watching online, please be sure to see that there is in the video description 2 links you should be aware of. One link is for the prayer book, and if you have a separate device, if you happen to have a separate device, it's helpful a little bit to follow along on that. And also there's a link for our program tonight, which has some supplementary music and readings tonight. So please be sure to take a look at those. And if you are here in our congregation, you have a prayer book and you have a program, so that sort of fulfills all of our needs here tonight. And it is just our opportunity to be welcomed by the Shabbat and for us to welcome Shabbat on this beautiful, cold evening in this warm community. Cantor.
So we'll gather ourselves together with a melody written with a feeling of releasing those things that we want to leave behind, so we can make room for what's going to come ahead. Ya la la la, ya da 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 da, ooh, ooh, ya la la la, ya da 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 da, ooh. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la la la.
ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ooh, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la. We meet here this week at a time when celebration is certainly in the air, but we also remember some of the difficult times in our people's lives, even in recent years. This is the third anniversary, the third yahrzeit of the terror attacks at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. We'll be mentioning the names of those victims later on because we observe their yahrzeit as well with all the other important yahrzeiten that we have on this night. There also was this week the start of that trial, I think it's a civil trial in Charlottesville, Virginia, about the people who were in that so-called Unite the Right march back in August of 2017. I think this tells something about the spirit of Jewish survival and resilience, because even though those things happen to our people, that we are here, and we are here to observe and celebrate, and to celebrate in community. And the fact is that those things don't really deter us. And I think the message is clear that we have to remain united as a community. We are here to seek the shelter, this sanctuary, literally, and the serenity of this place or in any other place where you may gather to worship. I hope that people feel secure in the place where you are. And it might be because of health, it might be because of other reasons that you feel a little bit anxious. And we hope that somehow those feelings can also dissipate and be something that you remember, but don't experience too much anymore. And we also are here to bring our hearts to a place of gratitude for all the blessings we do have in this world. And one of those blessings is that of community. Behold, it is wonderful for us to gather here in worship. We begin on page 128 in the prayer book with Hine Matov. Hine Matov, Manai, Shevet Achim, Yam Yachad. Hine Matov, Manai, Shevet Achim, Yam Yachad. How good it is, how good it is, how sweet it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how good it is, how sweet it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Hine matov umanai shevet achim yam yachad. Hine matov umanai shevet achim yam yachad. How good it is, how good it is, how sweet it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how good it is, how sweet it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Hine matov umanai shevet achim yam yachad. Hine matov umanai shevet achim gam yachad. Shevet achim gam yachad. Shevet achim gam yachad. We turn to page 120 for the blessings, thanking God for the light of Shabbat that are brought into our community. May the lights that we kindle on this night open our eyes to the light and truth of all the realities of humanity. We know that there is food enough to sustain us all if we but learn how to share it. There is beauty enough in the world to delight the eye and swell the heart. There is freedom enough in our world as long as we continue the struggle to bring that freedom to those still who are in real or virtual bondage. There is knowledge and intelligence aplenty to solve the myriads of problems in the world as long as we get politics out of the way. And there is the celebration of the joyful heritage of our people as we join with one another in the love of God's law and the love of God's beneficence to us. We praise for the light in the world and for the light in all humanity.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Kabbalat Shabbat, these psalms and praises that we begin our service with, they're an act of preparation, of readying the wellspring of joy and gratitude that we offer God on this day of rest. This is a day of gratitude to God for the rest and rejuvenation that we receive and that is our due. And all the benefits of this day could be ours if we but hearken to the guidelines that keep us connected to ourselves, the guidelines that teach us how to heal, the guidelines that teach us how to help and heal others. We begin on page 130, the Kabbalat Shabbat for this night. We begin with L'chu Niranena.
Niranena, ay, 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 Adonai, ay, 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 Naria, ay, 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 Tzurish Einu, ay, 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 Nikat afanav betoda, betoda, Izmirot narialo, narialo, L'chu niranena, ay, 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 Adonai, ay, 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 Naria, ay, 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 Tzurishenu, ay, 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 ay,
On page 138, we continue with Lecha Dodi, a song 400 or 500 years old, somewhere in that range, a song welcoming Shabbat to our hearts and our lives. We're going to be offering verses 1, 5, 6, and 9 tonight. On page 138.
Lecha Dodi, Dikerat Kala, Ele Shabbat Nekabela, Lecha Dodi, Dikerat Kala, Ele Shabbat Nekabela, Or V'Zachor V'Dibur Echad, Ishmi Anu El HaMyuchad, echad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad. L'shem ultiferet ve'litina. Lecha dodi likerat kala. Ene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likerat kala. Ene Shabbat nekabela. Toreri, toreri, ima orech umi ori. Uri, uri, shir daberi, kevod Adonai, alayich nigla, lecha dodi, nikerat kala, ene Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi, nikerat kala, ene Shabbat nekabela. Lo tevoshi velo tikalmi, matishkochachi umatehemi, bach yechesu aniei ami, venibneta ir altina. Lecha dodi nikerat kala, ene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi nikerat kala, ene Shabbat nekabela. Oi v'shalom ateret ba'ala, gam b'simcha u'b'tzola, kol chemunei am segula. Oi chala, oi chala. Lecha dodi likerat kala, ene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likerat kala, ene Shabbat nekabela. On page 140 is Mizmor Shir, of song reminding us how wonderful it is to give thanks to God. You know, giving thanks to God, offering gratitude is not something that we consciously think about all the time. So we actually pause here at the beginning of Shabbat worship to say how good it is to thank God, sing God's praises, and to thank God for all that we have in this world. On page 140, Tov Lehodot. Mizmor Shir Leyom HaShabbat, Tov Lehodot Adonai, Tov Lehodot Adonai, Ulezamer, Ulezamer Leshimcha Elyon, Tov Lehodot Adonai, Tov Lehodot Adonai, Tov Lehodot Adonai, Ulezamer, Ulezamer Leshimcha Elyon, Tov Lehodot Adonai.
בבוקר חסדך, להגיד בבוקר חסדך, ואמונתך בלילות, ואמונתך בלילות, בהודות אדוני, להגיד בבוקר חסדך, להגיד בבוקר חסדך, ואמונתך בלילות, ואמונתך בלילות, טוב להודות לאדוני.
One of the things that drew me to central Wisconsin, south central Wisconsin, is Four Seasons, because I began once in my life to learn to like Four Seasons, which is unusual maybe for someone coming from Southern California. But when I came here, it was obvious that at this time of year, there are pumpkin people and there are apple people, or there are pumpkin people and apple tree people, let me say that. And I want us to think for just a brief moment about the difference between pumpkins and apples, or pumpkin vines and apple trees, right? There are numerous orchards around here and numberless pumpkin patches. So what do we think of when we recognize these two kinds of fruit? First of all, pumpkins. Well, they grow all summer long, and they get very large sometimes, and make a big splash in the fall for various reasons, and especially lattes, right? And then they all disappear. They're gone. The vines disintegrate, and the pumpkins have all gone. And we consume them during a very brief window, or relatively speaking, a very brief window in time. But now think about the apple tree. The apple trees, they've grown all season, and they've given forth their fruit, and now they are bereft of their leaves. They are appearing perhaps somewhat dead to the world because you can't see. There are no signs of life with those trees. All the leaves have fallen. They appear sort of naked against the horizon. But we know that they're going into hibernation. We know that they're preparing for a long winter sleep, and we know that they're going to come back next year after having grown a little bit, after having taken from the earth the nutrients that they need to stay alive during the winter, even here with its terrible cold. And we think about them perhaps in relationship to us, because sometimes we have to turn inward a little bit to ourselves if we want to grow a little bit. Sometimes we have to bare our souls if we want to acknowledge our faults and grow from them. But like an apple tree, who does this sort of miraculously and quietly, and next year will come back to bloom, God willing, we hope that we too sometimes have to do this internally and miraculously, so that next time we have an encounter, or next year perhaps after the winter, we too can come back with better growth, with better leaves, with better produce, with better ideas, with better things to give to other people. So when we think of pumpkins and apple trees, I guess we have to think to ourselves, which would we want to be? Would we want to be a pumpkin who makes a splash in the world and disappears, or would we want to be that slow, growing, maturing, and learning apple tree? Our worship begins this evening on page 146 with Baruch Hu, a call to worship. We invite everyone to rise.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam va'ed.
On page 148, we read together toward the bottom of the page. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tsevaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening.
El Chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, Ama'ariv Aravi.
Amen. I'm reading on page 151. Wisdom and power, passion and instruction, story and symbol, all these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form?
ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל.
Amen. Page 152. Shem kevod, malachuto, leolam va'ed. Please be seated. We continue on 154.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
At the top of 157, we continue together. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Page 158.
בארים אדוני, כי כמוך נהדר בקודש, לא אור התהילות, עושה פלא, עושה פלא. מלכותך ראו בניך, חוקי הים לפני משה. מלכותך ראו בניך, חוקי הים לפני מרים. זה עיני ענו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם לעולם ועד. ידה לי 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 לי, ידה לי לי לי, yada lai 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 lai, yada lai lai lai, yada lai 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 lai, yada lai lai lai, lai 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 lai. נאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני Ga'am Yisrael.
On page 160 is Hashki Menu. It is a prayer in which we ask God for protection. The rabbis said we should say this prayer at night because it's a prayer of protection from all the things that could happen at night. But we know that in our lives there are many things that can happen to us at other times too, and so we seek divine protection at all times. In this week's Torah portion, Abraham, who now is living in a land where he was not born, is now seeking protection too of a different sort. During the chanting of Hashki Menu, I'll be offering a little reading. It's in the program, but if you'd like to follow along, you may. It talks about some of Abraham's feelings as he is now facing some challenges in his life.
Hashki Menu, Adonai Eloheinu leShalom, Ve'ha'amiteinu shomreinu b'chayim, Ufos aleinu, Sukat shelomecha, V'taknenu be'etzah tova milefanecha, Ve'hoshi'enu למען שמך, והושיענו למען שמך.
I never knew such pain before. The angst of offering up my son as a sacrifice, excruciating. The shame of my wife ordering me to send away her handmaid and my first son, agonizing. The woe of watching my wife withdraw into herself and die after living an empty life, unendurable. After she died, I walked around in a mental fog which God did not dispel. I was a virtual vagabond. I was a virtual vagabond in a land where I could not settle down, could not find true rest. Unrecognized, older than so many around me, inept in speech, accepting my advancing infirmity and age and woefully unaware of the conventions of the people. And whatever better powers of discernment I once carried with me were gone from my head. I was criticized for my faith in a God. I was shunned because I was the first Israelite. I'm only looking for a burial place, a center of security, What happens in later years does not matter to me. I am done. But my family wants to feel the land under their feet. So I want to give them roots to settle in this land, to fulfill their mission of soil and destiny. And yet those who sell me land are those who hate me, who wish to see this vagabond be gone. No commitment to the land, no land exchanges. I must convince them that I pledge myself as well as my family to this land, to this place, to these people forever. So how long will my family be suspicious strangers and reviled residents here?
אתה ועד עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני, הפורש סוכת שלום, עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל, ועל ירושלים.
In a few moments, we'll begin the tefillah. And I'd like to ask the congregation here and online, if you would, to refer again to the handout that we gave you tonight, to the supplement, because there is a piece of the tefillah tonight that we'll offer right in the middle, in the centerfold, if you will, that we'll be offering as a community. We'll be offering this reading responsively. So just sort of have that handy. This is a reading of part of chapter 37 of Ezekiel, which is the vision of the valley of the dry bones. And as we begin our tefillah, one of the things that, again, sort of distinguishes Reform liturgy from liturgies in the conservative, perhaps, and in the Orthodox movements, is the notion that in the Gevurot prayer in tefillah, we offer a prayer and we thank God for being Chayei HaMeitim. And that means we thank God for a God who raises the dead or gives life to the dead. In the Reform movement, we don't really gravitate toward that much longer. Reform avoids belief in a God who resurrects from the dead. And yet, some people feel that way. Some people feel that indeed there is going to be a resurrection, or there has been resurrection. And on the other hand, there are times when we feel less than alive. There are times when, during times of stress, following heated or passionate exchanges, where cruel words are shared or ill feelings are generated, sometimes we do want to just curl up and die, or so that expression tells us. And it's from those times, it's from those excesses that we do ask God to give us life once again. We do ask God to take us away from those feelings of feeling dead inside and come back to the life of love and the life of community. So let this tefillah then rejuvenate us to the point of feeling alive and feeling like we are part of the world. Let our prayer enliven our sense of gratitude for being alive and our sense of duty and obligation to help bring wholeness to the world. The tefillah begins tonight on page 164. We invite the community to rise.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare declare your praise.
Page 166.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu ve'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah האל הגדול הגיבור והנורא אל עליון גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה.
We now continue in the supplements tonight. And again, we read responsively with one another. There was upon me the hand of the Eternal, and through the divine Spirit did God take me and set me down in this valley that was full of bones. God guided me all around them. There were very many of them spread over the valley, and they were very dry. God said to me,
O mortal, can these bones live again?
I replied, O eternal God, only you know. And God said to me,
Prophesy over these bones and say to them, Dry bones, hear the word of the Eternal. Thus said the Eternal God, I will cause breath to enter you, and you shall live again. You shall be liberated from your deathful sleep. I will lay sinews upon you, and cover you with flesh, and form skin over you, and I will put breath into you, and you shall live again. You shall walk and talk like free men, and you shall know that I am the Eternal.
I prophesied as I had been commanded, and while I was prophesying, suddenly there was a sound of rattling, and the bones came together, bone to matching bone. I looked, and there were sinews on them, and flesh had grown, and skin had formed over them. But there was not breath nor spirit within them. Then God said to me,
Prophesy to the breath and spirit. Prophesy, O mortal. Say to the breath and the spirit, Thus said the Eternal God, Come, O breath, from the four winds, and breathe into these slain, that they may live.
I prophesied as God commanded me. The breath and spirit entered them, and they came to life and stood up on their feet, a vast multitude. Then God said to me,
O mortal, these bones are the whole house of Israel. They say, Our bones are dried up, our hope is gone, we are captive, we are persecuted, we are doomed. Prophesy, therefore, and say to them, Thus said the Eternal God, I am going to open your graves and lift you out of the graves, O my people, and bring you to the land of Israel. You shall know, O my people, that I am the Eternal, when I have opened, O my people, that I am the Eternal, when I have opened your graves and lifted you out of your graves. I will put my breath and my spirit into you, and you shall live again, and I will set you upon your own soil. Then you shall know that I, the Eternal, have spoken and have
acted. We continue on page 170.
אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Amen. We now continue our tefillah with silent prayer. We are offering now the opportunity to offer prayer silently, and you can remain standing or you may sit according to whatever custom you choose. And when you are done, please be seated if you're still standing, and we'll continue on page 180 eventually.
Still praying quietly, please continue. Feel free to continue, but we'll join together with a prayer for acceptance and peace at the bottom of page 180. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable to you, Adonai, my rock, my redeemer, my rock, my redeemer. You leratson imrevi hegion libi lefanecha Adonai tzuri vego ali vego ali Ose shalom Limromav Uyase shalom Aleinu Ve'al kol Israel Ve'al kol Yoshvei Tevel Oseh shalom Imromav Yaseh shalom Aleinu Ve'al kol Yisrael Ve'al kol Yoshvei Tevel Ve'imru Amen Ve'imru Amen.
What a terrible outburst. I apologize. That was on there too loose. I now want to invite the community to turn to page 123 in the prayer book as we now offer Kiddush. Please join Cantor Nami for the Kiddush, page 123.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikra'ei kodesh zecher litziat Mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchalatanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat
L'chaim. Shabbat Shalom. I want to talk a little bit about the Parashat this week, and it'll lead into another subject. But think about these words in this week's Torah Parasha. I am a foreigner and a resident with you. Abraham says this to the Hittites in this week's Torah portion of Chayei Sarah. Now, his goal at that very moment was to do something that each of us needs to do once or twice in our lives, perhaps, which is to purchase a burial site for someone. In Abraham's case, the burial site was for his recently, very recently deceased wife, Sarah. As so many people do, even in our times, in the midst of his mourning, he needs to negotiate the purchase of graves in his newly adopted country. So he speaks to the local landowners about available local property. He begins his offer to buy the land with one of the most transparent statements one can imagine. It is true, he says, I am a ger, a foreigner with you. And it will soon also be true that I am a toshav, a resident with you, or at least someone who hopes to be a permanent dweller in this place. But I feel as though I am in limbo, neither a settled Canaanite nor anymore a wanderer. So, since I am a wanderer and I have no possessions to call my own, please give me something that I can literally hold on to, which he calls an achuzat kever, a gravesite that I own. In this manner, says Abraham, I can legally be landed here. I can bury my dead here. I can feel as though I belong here. Now, a gravesite is certainly something permanent, permanent as permanent can be in our ever-changing world. When you visit the land of Israel, you will see cemeteries of the rabbis of the Talmud, and you can go visit them, and they're 1,800 years old. You can be there. In our country, in some of our cities, we encounter graves that contained named individuals that are 400 and more years old. And as our community learned just last week during our walking tour with Amy Rosebrough of the Wisconsin Historical Society, there are burial mounds of indigenous peoples within 1 mile of our synagogue that possibly date to 14,000 years ago. Such is the power of memory and the force of something that we own, the force of possessions. But more to my point tonight, such is the power of residency in a land and the assets that accompany that status of resident. For Abraham, his claim to residency in his new land resides in the permanence of a family burial plot. Now, in our day, there may be other belongings, other things that we hold on to, that we cherish, that signify the status of our residency here. Being able to have a home with a family nearby, maybe. Being able to be productive and earn a living income. Being able to be active in the local community and to have freedom to advocate for what we want in life. All of these and more denote the dignity that comes from being welcomed and accepted even in a foreign land. These are the kinds of things that our immigrant forebears strove for when they came here to these shores. And these are what newly landed immigrants want and need these days in our land of freedom and opportunity. So tonight I urge us to summon up our heartiest sense of empathy, along with a heavy dose of tzedakah, and think about what we, who once were immigrants to this land, can do for the immigrants who now live among us, those who have been here a long time, those who are newly landed, those who have come here seeking the freedoms and opportunities that are available to more permanent residents here, and those that should be available even to newcomers. What can we do to help those among us whose status is questioned by our current immigration system? As Jews, it is our responsibility to understand the need of immigrants and to help them. No less than 36 times in the Torah commands a just treatment of the stranger. Here are 4 illustrations. In Leviticus, we read, "The stranger who resides with you shall be to you as one of your citizens. You shall love them as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt." In Exodus, we learn, "You shall not wrong a stranger or oppress them, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt." We learn that all people who reside within our borders should have the protection of our laws and customs. As the book of Leviticus teaches, "You shall have one standard law for the stranger and citizen alike, for I, the Eternal, am your God." And we learn what provides dignity to the stranger when, in the book of Deuteronomy, we learn that we shall not subvert the rights of the stranger or the fatherless. You shall not take a widow's garment in pawn. Now, as I offer these nice and inspirational words of Torah to you, you might think to yourself that our immigration system here is too flawed, or that our immigration system is too politically fraught to be effective and efficient, or that our immigration system can't accommodate the numbers of people who want to come here. Now, our nation desperately needs to confront those issues, and we pray that our national leaders will take up the challenge of true immigration reform with the intention to help and with the desire to do the right thing for our nation and for those who seek entry. But we know that today we have the ability to offer real relief to those 11 million immigrants who reside in our nation and who have been here for a long time without the benefits of legal residence. These are the dreamers that you know about, those who have lived here for years, those who have paid taxes and who have benefited by living in our society and benefited our community by being engaged there. And there are the parents and children of all of them who have lived here in relative peace and security, but now face uncertainty because we have not clarified their status and acknowledged their contributions to American life. There have been many breakthroughs in recent weeks and months, and Congress is currently debating how to create a path to citizenship for millions of immigration undocumented persons living in the United States. It is part of what I think is called the Build Back Better agenda framework, right? Many immigration undocumented persons have lived in Wisconsin and in the U.S. in general for many years, often decades. They positively impact our communities with their peaceful presence, their hard work, their low crime rates, and we must acknowledge their significant participation in providing many of the needs and services that we depend on. Now, these people, as you know, pay income and Social Security taxes while receiving no federal or state benefits. 69% of immigration undocumented workers are essential workers, as have been defined during the pandemic. And they not only bolstered our economy, but sustained us during the pandemic. And the most amazing opportunity now confronts us as we look to our national leadership to increase the social safety net for these immigrants among us. Yesterday, just yesterday, the president proposed to include $100 billion for immigration reform as part of his Build Back Better framework, and that is the immigration aid that is still part of that scaled down but crucial reconciliation budget that the federal legislature will soon vote on. My friends, we are closer than we've ever been in the last 30 years to achieving this kind of immigration reform with a path to citizenship. This progress is a credit to the strength of those involved in the movement of bringing dignity, opportunity, and equality to those who are immigrants to our shores. A majority of Americans feel the need for this kind of legislation, yet victory is not guaranteed in the Congress. All our legislators in Congress, the president and the vice president, they have not yet committed to use the power they hold to deliver on their promise to pass a path to citizenship this year. They've talked about it. Many elected officials ran on the promise of creating this pathway, and now our nation needs them to fulfill their vows and bring this proposal to life. For years, our nation has depended upon the strength of the backs and the ingenuity of immigrants, some here legally and many here illegally, to build our nation, to ensure that we can have comfortable homes and be served delicious meals. And during the pandemic, it's been the immigrants who have been on the front lines of service, grocery, and other food industries, ensuring that despite our being locked down, we had the necessities of life. Let us demonstrate to them now that we can fulfill this commitment to them, a commitment that they have anticipated, some for 30 years. If you support the need to help these immigrants and bring a pathway to citizenship closer, please write letters to our senators, write letter to your congressperson, the president and the vice president, and urge them to help secure these blessings of dignity and security for those around us who are, like our patriarch Abraham, still both foreigners and residents here. For those with us here in the sanctuary tonight who live in Madison, certainly I have talking point letters for you if you'd like to write those letters this weekend. We don't know for certain when these votes will happen in the Congress, but negotiations on everything are ongoing and things change every day. Our push needs to be now. So again, please take one of these handouts I have here on the table in front of me if you could do so this weekend. Thank you for considering this. The limbo-like status between being a foreigner and being a resident is a place where no one should dwell for more than is absolutely necessary. It is a place of gray, of indecision, and of uncertainty. As people of faith, we as people of faith, we should welcome the immigrant and the stranger. We should remember to love our neighbor as ourselves so that we can bring them securely into this land of opportunity and comfort as we all know it. Please join me in helping this effort. Shabbat Shalom. We now would like to invite you to turn to page 371 in the prayer book, page 371, as we offer prayers of healing and wholeness to people who are in need. We have over 100 people now on our healing list this week, and we pray for their welfare, for those who have been in the hospital, who may still be in the hospital, for those who are recuperating from illness or surgery, God willing. We pray for situations even where there is a terminal illness, because we pray too that wholeness will come to that family. And we pray for those people who are affected by coronavirus, so many of us. The cities of our nation that are afflicted by strife and contention. People with mental illness, people who have been victims of stalkers and sexual predators, and people who have been trafficked as human slaves. The victims of violence against anyone because of their skin color, their country of origin, their race, their sexual orientation or gender identity, their ethnicity, or their level of ability. The victims of natural and human-caused disasters, innocent victims of terror around the world, and all wounded service personnel serving our country. There may be individuals that you think of right now that deserve our prayers, and if you'd like to add your names, your loved one's name, to this list of people and categories of people whom we think about, I invite you to do so.
Diane Goldenberg, Dr. Melvin Berlin,
Lisa Lawrence.
For those people with us online too, if you would like to add your friends and loved ones' names to the video description, we invite you to do that as well, so that we can share your pain and hopefully bring solace to those who are ailing. We now continue with our prayer for healing on page 371, Misha Berach, at the middle of the page.
Misha Berach Avotenu Mikol HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishe Berach Imotenu Mikol HaBracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Our service continues with Aleinu on page 586. We invite the congregation to rise. Page 586 at the top.
Aleinu leshabeach la'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב יקרו, השמיים ממעל, ושכינת עוזו בגופי מרומים, ואלוהינו אין עוד. ואנחנו קוראים ומתרחבים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
May be seated. On page 589, we read together at the top, "Let the time not be distant, O God, when all shall turn to you in love, when corruption and evil shall give way to integrity and goodness, when superstition shall no longer enslave the mind, nor idolatry blind the eye. O may all created in your image become one in spirit and one in friendship, forever united in your service. Then shall your realm be established on earth, and the word of your prophet fulfilled. Adonai will reign forever and ever.
Page 591. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo
I'd like to invite you to now refer to the supplement once more. The inside centerfold, if you will, of the supplement, to a piece of music that Cantor Nami will now offer to us. This song was written in the wake of the tragic shootings at the Tree of Life Synagogue 3 years ago. And it specifically mentions a tree of life, but we know that a tree of life is something that we have spoken about for years in our tradition. So in effect, this song not only refers to those who might have been part of that tragic event 3 years ago, but as we remember anyone whose yahrzeit occurs or for whom we are in mourning, we know that they continue to be part of our life as well, even though their physical presence is no longer available to us. They remain part of our tree of life. And in the middle here of our program, we continue.
Oh, sweet Spirit, hear my prayer. Help these words heal someone out there. I am but a voice, just a cry in the air, but I sing nonetheless in this pain that we share. Oh, sweet friends, come and dry your eyes and hold each other like this tree of life. I'm angry and tired of this great divide, but I sing nonetheless with love on our side. Oh, sweet souls who feel broken now, we'll heal together somewhere, somehow. Time and again we have been let down, but we sing nonetheless, still whole and still proud. Oh, sweet Spirit, hear my prayer. Help these words heal someone out there.
On this sacred Shabbat, these are those whom we remember at this time. In the last 30 days, we have lost someone connected to our community, and we remember Pam Burgum, mother of Mark Burgum, grandmother of Simon and Rona Burgum. And we remember others whose yahrzeit occur at this time. And if you are here tonight in mourning or observing a yahrzeit, we invite you to rise as the name of your loved one is recited, and you'll be joined with the whole community later on and when we recite the Kaddish. In continuing love and devotion, we remember Phyllis Skloot Bamberger, Elaine Melnick Bongar, Julia Bove, Mary Center, Charles H. Charnowitz, Robert S. Chasen, Anthony DeTulio, Barbara Juster Espenson, Jean E. Fine, Mary Duville Frawley, Mary Gold, Tamar Hameson Simpson, Esther Halperin, Evelyn Fisher Karlov, Craig M. Lamb, David M. Levitan, Johann Peidelstein, Dorothy Silver Prusak, Dorothy Reisman, Dora Rich, Dina Robinson, Howard Scheibel, Mayor L. Schwartz, Sidney I. Siegel, Sally Silverberg Jacobs, Charlotte Sinovoy, Max H. Spahn, Hyman Swed, Florence Weisman, Mia Waltz, Lawrence A. Weinstein, and Sarah R. Wexler. And these are those who perished at the Tree of Life Synagogue 3 years ago. We remember Joyce Feinberg, Richard Gottfried, Rose Mallinger, Jerry Rabinowitz, Cecil Rosenthal, David Rosenthal, Bernice Simon, Sylvan Simon, Daniel Stein, Melvin Wax, Irving Younger. There may be other members of this worship community this evening, either here with us in the sanctuary or online with us, who are remembering loved ones. And if you would want to share your loved ones' names with us, we invite you to do so.
Ben Jacobs.
Other folks that we should be remembering tonight. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be blessings in our hearts and the hearts and minds of all those who knew and loved them. Testifying to the faith that binds the generations of humanity together, we now invite everyone to turn to page 598, and we rise as together we offer the mourner's Kaddish. Again, page 598. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divrach irutei ve'amlich malchutei, v'chayechon u'vyomechon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv ve'imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yit hadar, v'yit aleh, v'yit halal, shemei d'kudsha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma, v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol Yoshvei Tevel, ve'imru. Amen. May God send peace to those who mourn and comfort to those who are bereaved and who remember on this night. And we say, Amen. Please be seated. In a few moments, our service will conclude, and when it does, please remember there are cookies for our oneg to go from Just Bakery. Recalling that Just Bakery is an important institution in Madison as they help former prisoners return to life and learn trades and learn skills that will help them in their future life. So please take a cookie as our oneg to go. I'd like to thank all of you for being here tonight. I want to thank my Bima partner, Cantor Jacob Namey. Thank you very much. Just a few brief announcements before we go. I also want to thank Summer Koff. Summer Koff is with us, newly presented to us as a member of our staff, and so he was greeting tonight. So Summer, thank you very much. They were greeting tonight, and I want to thank Summer very much for that. Few brief announcements. First of all, tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, there will be Torah study led by Steve Craid, and that'll be on Zoom. Next Friday evening, services will be at 6 p.m. with Shabbat. It will also be the first grade Shabbat, and officiating will be Cantor Nami and our Director of Lifelong Learning, Nicole Jar. And then on Saturday morning, November 6th, there will be Torah study at 9 o'clock, led by Steve Olson. The Shabbat service, I neglected to say it correctly, will be on YouTube, as now we are broadcasting our services exclusively on YouTube. And for those people who need some help finding that link and getting online, please remember to call our office during the week, and at certain points you'll be able to get a little bit of help. But I think it's pretty clear. But if you need some help, be sure to call the office. We'll be able to help you out.
And we'll be sure to post the YouTube link on Facebook for anybody who ends up there initially.
It's a hard transition to make, and so we're trying to make it in the most appropriate way we can. Anything else that we should be mentioning? Oh, well, I should mention this. Tuesday is Foodorama. I hope that those people who have ordered food are getting ready to pick up their food. This year, as last year, we don't have a deli that's open, like just come and eat, that you need to have reserved, you need to have ordered in advance. So remember to pick up your baked goods and your goodies according to the calendar that you received in the mail in the last day or two. Hopefully you received your schedule of when to pick up and exactly how to do that. Again, we're trying to do a contactless kind of pickup, so please follow the instructions that you received by email in order to do that. And also the weekend of November 12th to 14th is our Swarsensky Scholar Weekend with Rabbi Mark Samuth. Please check our website for all the details. Worship will be live here that night. Rabbi Samuth will be with us by video, and the rest of the weekend will be on Zoom. So please remember that as you go into the Swarsensky weekend. That's just the way things are, and we want to make sure that people remain safe, and so it goes in this COVID world. Anything else now we should be thinking about?
I think that covers it for a while.
All right. You know, we have so many things we're trying to think of here.
Sure.
We want to end our service now with a song of hope, a song of future.
So we neglected to get this into the program, but I think we'll be all right. There's only 3 Hebrew words, and I want to actually deepen them for a moment. The first is olam. Can we say together, olam?
Olam.
Olam means, in a sense of eternity or expansiveness, either in time or in space. So it can mean the world, the universe, but also eternity. And then chesed. We say together, chesed. Chesed's often translated as loving kindness or steadfast love. There's a deeper component to it. It's most commonly associated with the kind of love that a parent has for their child. It's a love that pours out of us toward another because that love can't help itself by nature of the relationship that we have. So it could be a gracious love or a steadfast love or loving kindness. And then yibaneh, can we say together, yibaneh will be built. So by deepening these words, we could say something along the lines of, the world will be built upon loving kindness, or eternity will be based upon loving kindness, or loving kindness will be built eternally. And all of those meanings are contained within just these 3 words. And we pray that all of them may be so. Amen. Olam chesed yibaneh, yadadai, dai, yadadai, dai. Olam chesed yibaneh, yadadai, dai, yadadai.
Ibane, Yadadai, Dai, Dai, Yadadai, Dai. Olam Chesed Ibane, Yadadai, Dai, Dai, Yadadai, Dai. I will build this world from love. I will build this world from love. Yadadai, Dai, Dai, Yadadai, Dai. You must build, and you must build this world from love. Yadadai, Dai, Dai, Yadadai, Dai. And if we build this world from love, Yadadai, Dai, Dai, Yadadai, Dai, then God will build this world from love. Yadadai, Dai, Dai, Yadadai, Dai. Olam Chesed Ibaneh, 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 Yadadai, Dai, 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 Dai.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
We've got one phone to get transferred, that's mine. Thank you. And I think I can.
Oh, I mean,
And they keep saying, phone is not paid up. You own nothing on it, it's not paid up. I don't know if you know how to understand. There's something that says, cannot unlock this phone, money is low.
no, you could have lost your
Zero. So I said, let's do it. Hold on, they paid it. Put it zero. And that should fail. So if that happens, you'll never see the I don't know, I think it's actually. We got
Yeah, I'm aware of that. Yeah, I can hear it on there myself. It's still audible. I can hear it. The static though, but it's still, okay, it's still enough. Have you noticed any difference like?
I gotta go.